welcome to Fremont Report. Tonight is Monday, April 23rd, 2012. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am one of your hosts, James Lane, and I'm joined by
Holland Vandennieuwenhof.
Hey, you actually pronounced that correctly.
I'm the only one.
We've been doing a lot of radio interviews this week, and it seems like the hosts always have a difficult time with Holland's last name.
I don't know why.
I'll actually send it to him like phonetically spelled out with like the dashes and everything, and it's still difficult. But I mean, it took me, I think, the first 6 months of knowing you to actually get that down right.
I don't know why all you people have trouble with my name.
It works out in his favor, though. So,
yes, it does. The government databases always spell my name wrong too. I guess I shouldn't reveal that, but oh well. You're not going to spell it right, so whatever. Yeah, that has proven advantageous in the past, and will probably continue to.
Unfortunately, Austin Green is feeling a little under the weather tonight, so he will not be joining us. But at the bottom of the hour, we will be joined by our special guest tonight, Popeye from federaljack.com. Prolific activist, man. I mean, just the amount of information that they get out has just always impressed me. I mean, one of the guys came up to me in New York and was like talking about like some obscure article that what I suspect was an SPLC agent put out about me and Charles Key.
Yeah, very, very obscure minutia detail about the local politics in Oklahoma, and he was on top of it.
Yeah.
So those guys are on top, and Popeye is a definite up-and-comer in the talk radio scene. I was on his show just when the movie released in December or January, and then when I was on just a couple of days ago, I've noticed the tremendous increase in his audience. So Popeye's going to be he's going to be in the top tier one day. So we're catching out. We're hitching our wagon to a star, if you say.
Yes, he does a show called Down the Rabbit Hole with Popeye. So, yeah, be sure and check that out. And he'll be coming up at the bottom of the hour. Welcome back to the Fremont Report on the Logos Radio Network. I appreciate you joining us tonight. This is going to be kind of an open topic night, open mic. Anybody can call in, 512-646-1984. That's 512-646-1984.
Our guest tonight is Popeye from Down the Rabbit Hole, which is broadcast on the Ryan Broadcast Network. Now, I've done a number of radio shows, just a fair number over these past couple of months due to the movie. And I've always been a fan of Popeye's show, and I've always enjoyed my appearances on the show. That's why I invited him on tonight. And I do think that Popeye is a rising star in the talk radio community, and that his name is going to be a lot bigger in the near future. It's bigger than even from when the first time I appeared on his show. So we're kind of hitching our wagon to his star and having him on. But I want to introduce our audience to Popeye, talk about him, find out where he came from, find out about his show. So Popeye, welcome to the show.
Well, Holland, James, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be on with you guys. So you're not hitching onto my star at all. If anything, it's the other way around, gentlemen.
No. Well, let's tell the audience and ourselves as well. We've heard a little bit about your background, but tell us about yourself, how you got started in this quest for truth.
Well, I never trusted the government from the time I was a young lad. And I've always been interested in conspiracies and stuff like the JFK assassination and the like. But after 9/11, being so close to ground zero and being a firefighter myself, I actually suffered from a severe form for a while of guilt, like survivor's guilt. And almost, I guess, if you wanted to call it a form of PTSD. And it took me a long time to get over it, and I couldn't even look at the events of that day. And it took about, I'd say, probably 2 years, 2.5 years, and I started to, when the 9/11 hearings were on, I would hear things, and I saw the family members getting treated like crap, and I was still half in that I can't look at it too much phase. And about a year later, a little bit, probably like 6-7 months after Phantom Fury 2, the second Battle of Fallujah, all these Marines started writing books about their experiences on the ground. And Mattis and Conway, the two generals that ran Iraqi freedom, I'm doing quotes.
And you were a Marine yourself.
No, I'm Coast Guard, but
okay.
Yeah, the Coast Guard trains pretty close with the Marine Corps. Not many people realize that, but Coast Guard's a multi-mission agency, and I have the utmost respect for Marines. Some of my best friends are Marines. Actually, I was going to join the Marine Corps, but they wouldn't take me because I had too many tattoos, and they told me I had to get them lasered off to get shot at. And I was like, okay, I draw the line. I'll take a bullet, but I'm not getting rid of my tattoos. They're the only thing I can take with me. So once I got through all that, that guilt, and I wanted to see from the guys on the ground. I wanted to see. I've always been into military strategy and stuff from the time I was a little kid. So that kind of stuff is just something I sucked up. Holland will know, being a former Marine himself, or actually there is no such thing as a former Marine, just retired. But being a retired Marine himself, Holland will tell you that if you're into that, it's kind of like history, and you want to learn as much as you can. You know what I mean? And that's
I've always been a fan of military history, and although I'm vehemently, of course, against the wars that are going on, I still study the history of these recent battles. For one, I was a Marine, and two, it's good to know these things, see how the evolution of warfare is progressing. It's been an interest of mine for years. Go ahead.
Well, that's kind of the same way I am. If you look at history, it's very honestly. When people say history is boring, I don't understand how they could say that. I mean, it's better than any movie you'll see out there. But I don't want to digress too much. Anyway, I started reading these books, and I read Conway's book and Mattis's book about the initial invasion, and I was like, "You mean Tommy Franks and Rumsfeld and all them were micromanaging the war? Why didn't they just let these generals go in and do what they had to do? Let the Marines go in and do what they do best." Because you got to remember, at the time, I was still, lockstep somewhat,
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, let me go read the books from the guys on the ground. And their stories started to differ. They started to talk about they caught guys running drugs, and there was speculation that it was probably some CIA stuff. So, lo and behold, by the way, I was able to get verification of that from Dr. Dahlia Wasfi. I don't know if you guys know her, but when I interviewed her on my show, her husband, she's an activist. She's very outspoken for Iraq and everything, and the people over there and what's happened from the war. But her husband, Ross, was a Marine on the ground. And when I interviewed her, I had mentioned this about them running drugs through Fallujah and everything, and a lot of the Marines came upon this where they'd come upon a machine gun nest, and the guys would have a kilo of coke, and obviously they were all dead, but the reason why these guys wouldn't stop was because they were scar-facing it before they would take the Marines on. So yeah, I dumped all this info on her live on air, and she hadn't heard of it, and it was nice because she went back and talked to him, and he verified it. He said, yeah, when he was on the ground in Fallujah in 2004, he had heard the same stuff. So long story short, all this stuff started to add up, and I had already started to read Bill Cooper's book back when I was recovering from surgery, when I was in the Guard and I got hurt. And that kind of stuff kind of blew my mind. I got about halfway through his book, and the mind control that you receive in boot camp was still fighting off that information. Mm-hmm. So I went back and I read his book again, and then I read Rule by Secrecy by Jim Marrs. It probably literally in about 4.5 days. I just didn't sleep. I just read. And I just couldn't get enough. I started to look into 9/11 because I was like, they've done this, but no way did they do 9/11. I still didn't want to believe it.
See, that's the thing with me, because even in 2001, I was still, I had known what had gone down in Oklahoma City. I'd read The Politics of Terror and the Oklahoma City Bombing by David Hoffman, which is one of the seminal works and really goes into the false flag aspect. And so I knew about Oklahoma City, but when I saw 9/11 go down, I was like, surely they are not that ruthless and cold-blooded. There's just no, I can give them Oklahoma City, but there's no way they took it to the level of 9/11, killed all these people. And until I started talking to some other people, some friends of mine who were fully awake, and they started, laying facts on me, and I just couldn't turn away from the facts. But even though I was awake to Oklahoma City, it was still surprising to me that I just couldn't even take 9/11 at the time when I saw it go down on TV. I was like, well, surely there's no way they did this again.
Well, see, and I was actually, opposed to it. I was like, I got tired of hearing about all this 9/11 truth and this and that. I really like to debate people. And the way I would do that was I would actually go and learn their argument so I could debate better. And I started digging into it, and I couldn't disprove it. And after that, it's like one thing led to another, and you just gain momentum. And after a while, you can't stop, that's what's great about, getting involved, getting active, doing something. Because, after a while, it just becomes, you eat, sleep, and breathe, truth. and trying to expose people to the facts of the world around them, because I mean, I've lost quite a bit of hope of, affecting any type of change to the established mechanisms of power. I mean, they're holding all the keys, guarding all the doors, but if we can wake people up, we have those one-on-one conversations out there in the streets with people, that is a change that they can have no control over.
Well, they're irrelevant anyway. That's why they're freaking out, because they realize that what's coming is an evolution of humanity, and they're going to become irrelevant, and that's why they're scurrying, trying to create this police state. So it's their last-ditch effort of trying to control humanity. So what it really is, that's what it all boils down to. They are scared.
I think we got 20 years left, and if we don't win freedom within 20 years, we're doomed.
A lot of the white papers are saying 2015 is really when they're going to ratchet it up. I mean, when you read their own publications, that seems to be a target date for them.
Yeah, I think we're at the historical point where we're at the point where it's going to become now or never, or we're going to be enslaved.
And it's going to be to the point.
Thing.
Yeah, well, and what Terrence McKenna, where they're trying to, perfect the methods of control to the point where dissent can be abolished forever. This may be the last revolution. That's why it's all the more important. We've never been at this level of technology to where they can actually affect this level of control, and this is why it's all the more important, folks.
Well, Morpheus says it best, right? He says, "This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back." And really, there is no turning back anyway, right? Because the world as we know it, or as we remember it being, post 9/11, I'm doing air quotes, I hate that, in the post 9/11 world, the world we remember is no longer. Things are evolving. So we either listen to me, we either evolve into something, into a society and, where we can all get along and maybe explore space and take, cure cancer and things like that and evolve and become knowledgeable and spiritual beings, or we can go into the police state that these elitists want because they want to control everything. We have a choice. The choice is ours. Do we let it happen, or do we do something about it?
It's the oldest play in the book. It's divide and conquer. They keep us arguing amongst ourselves while they remain in their positions of power. I mean, that's why we chose the title A Noble Lie in the documentary. It's a lie told by the elite to maintain social harmony or the position of the elite. And again, in their publications, when you look at, the Fabian socialists, all of these people that are basically the architects of the current system, that is their primary objective above all else, is to maintain the social structure. And I think, you hit the nail on the head there. We're hitting a point of this global awakening. I mean, Brzezinski just, last year said they're facing a challenge like never before. The world is politically aware. We're aware of what they're trying to do. We're aware of their agenda, and we're here to expose this and try to preserve what we can of freedom. And this is why I say every day when you wake up, ask yourself, what can I do to preserve or expand individual liberty? Some of your energy that day needs to be dedicated to that. I mean, we've got so many things that we do throughout the day. At least dedicate a little bit of time, folks. You're listening to the Free Mind Report on the Logos Radio Network, and we're going to be back with our special guest, Popeye from Federal Jack and Down the Rabbit Hole right after this. Welcome back to the Free Mind Report on the Logos Radio Network. As always, you can go to freemindreport.com, keep up with our current guest information, and check out the podcast. Tonight is open mic, open subject night, 512-646-1984. 512-646-1984. Calling with whatever comments or questions you have. We are speaking with Popeye from federaljack.com and Down the Rabbit Hole.
Exactly. Popeye's been a great guest so far. Hopefully we can have him on in the future, because you have a lot of wisdom to impart to this audience. Popeye, what are some of the subjects you cover in your show? Tell the people about your show.
I cover pretty much everything that you could possibly want to know about. I guess you could call it alternative history, or the real history of things. I'll cover false flag events. I cover news that's going on at the current moment. I like to bring on activists to try to get them some spotlight, get people to know them and see the stuff they do. Because I find that when you bring an activist on the show and the listeners hear it, a lot of times they're inspired to go do their own things. And then that causes people to see their stuff. And then other people are inspired by that. And then they do their own thing. And then it's this, it just keeps growing. So
We all need to do our own thing. You find your niche, find your creative talent that you can use to spread awareness and affect change, and do it. Be it radio, be it activism, be it art, be it writing, be it journalism, be it whatever. Find your niche, your what you can contribute to the cause, and do it. I remember, if you're just aware of things, you're not doing anything about it. You're really not doing a whole lot. And I was aware of things for years, for a decade or more before I actually got off the bench and started doing something. And when we all started in small ways, but it adds up as long as you apply enough effort. And I've applied more effort into this stuff than I have in anything in my life. You apply enough effort with enough wisdom, which you can learn from others who have gone before you, you can get out there and affect change. I wish to impart that to people.
Well, and I'll always remember right after I woke up, I woke my family up, and I remember my dad sitting on the edge of the couch. We went through a whole bunch of documentaries, and he had his hand in his hands. Looks up, he's like, "I feel like I'm waking up from a dream." And I used Carlin's line. I was like, "Yeah, it's called the American Dream because you have to be asleep to believe it." It's like you're waking up, and I feel blessed that I was able to get the support of my family in what I'm doing. But, again, those one-on-one conversations are what makes the difference. And, who was it? It was Gary Franchi. He was, speaking at the Freedom 21 conference. And, he said, it was a common experience that, when he woke up, he locked himself in the basement for 2 weeks and just deprogrammed himself with documentary movies. And I was like, that's exactly, the experience that I went through. I just, I isolated myself for a time, educated myself, and then did everything I could to surround myself with people that shared my worldview, that we reinforce each other. We push each other to go farther and be, better activists. And for that, I'm very grateful.
Yeah. For people out there, I highly advise you to reach out and try to form a community or join a community of like-minded people. It's very hard to maintain an alternative worldview when you're bombarded on all sides with the mainstream worldview that's trying to dictate that worldview to you, trying to dictate your behavior. And when you're surrounded by that, when all you do is watch TV and hang out with friends who, have no concern for that or reinforce the mainstream worldview, it's hard to maintain your position. It's very easy to cave in to peer pressure. But when you have peers around you who reinforce your worldview, who can add to it, who you can learn from and who you can work with, that's where you're really getting somewhere, because you're not just sitting on the bench anymore. You're not the lone voice in the wilderness crying out the truth. You're actually involved and getting involved and affecting change. And I highly advise for those. I meet a lot of people who, I'm the only one that I know who really thinks this way. Well, this is 2012. There's no reason for it to be that way. There is a community of communication, alternative media, networking, activist groups. Get out there, get off the bench, and get something done, because that's the only thing we can do right now. This is the battle. The revolution is not, around the corner or 2 years from now or on December 21st. It's right now. This is the info revolution. We're fighting it right now.
I concur 110%. If you don't get involved now, it's going to be too late down the road. And people need to get up and get pissed off for whatever reason. They need to get angry. They need to get involved. What really helps wake people up? I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the economy. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't get angry at not having enough money?
Mm-hmm.
That's been very effective. And, we were, I was really involved with a lot of the tea parties. I co-founded one here in Oklahoma. And, at the beginning, before it got completely co-opted, there was a lot of anger there towards that. They saw the economic collapse coming.
The bailouts.
Yeah, the bailouts. And they were mad at both sides. That was a very effective tool. And we caught this big wave and rode it for a while. But, again, they always co-opt, these good movements. And I'm concerned now that, if somebody like Romney or whoever wins, that it's going to put the people that identify themselves with the right, back to sleep. They're going to I did my part. I voted. I'm done. Right now we've got them out there in the streets. We've got them out there doing stuff. They're engaged, with their legislators, et cetera, trying to talk to other people. I'm concerned of what'll happen after this election.
I'm actually glad you brought that back up, because I heard you mention that earlier. I was listening to the show when you guys first came on air tonight, and that's really a good point. look what happened with the anti-war left. Remember before Obama won and Bush was in, the New World Order, 9/11 was an inside job. As soon as Obama got in, Code Pink was over in Afghanistan saying that it was okay to have war over there because we were giving women, rights, and they were
women's rights.
Yeah, ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the whole anti-war movement just went to sleep. I mean, they went from these massive protests to just non-existent.
Well, I mean, for 8 years, some of our best friends were leftists, were Democrats. And I was like, are y'all listening to what we're saying? And then they were cool as long as we were talking about Bush. Although we were trying to transcend the left-right paradigm, they were fine with it as long as a Republican was, occupying the chief executive seat. But as soon as Obama became president, we became pariah in the local activist movement here in Oklahoma City. In many levels. And, the anti-war movement stalled. I mean, they told me, yeah, we're done. Obama won. I mean, they literally told me that. I was like, well, we're still at war. I mean, what does that mean? It didn't.
You guys should go make some phone calls on air one night and ask them live on air, hey, how do you feel now? Tell everybody how you feel now.
The anti-war movement here in Oklahoma City, which has long been a slave to the Democratic Party machine, appears at least be paying lip service to genuine dissent. They seem to be upset with Obama, and you see that on the left, the mainstream left.
Their numbers are so low, though. I mean, Obama came to town, and it was such a circus. But they actually went out and protested him because of his stance on war.
I was really surprised that they did,
but it was very small numbers. They don't have the turnouts that they had during.
He comes here and they worship him too, and we're down, in the South, and everybody loves him because there's people. One of my best friends, a very intelligent individual. He refuses to believe that Obama has done anything wrong. He thinks he's the greatest president. And I'll bring up examples and I'll show him things, and he'll come up with the most insane arguments to try to justify it. And I said to him the other day, I said, do you realize you're trying to justify somebody that murders children? You're trying to justify his actions to me. You don't even know this guy. Have you ever met him? Did you ever sit down and have a beer with this guy? No. So why are you getting so emotional over this? I mean, it was getting heated. It was ridiculous. And this guy's one of the smartest individuals I know. He's not by any means dumb. Just it doesn't matter what your intelligence level is. If you buy into the BS and you drink the Kool-Aid, you guys know how it is.
Oh yeah. One thing about this voyage of truth that we all go through is that you quickly discover that most of your idols are false. And you discover that actually you should have no idols, that you should be emulating anyone or looking up to anyone so much. You should be doing stuff yourself. And that's the big thing is instead of idolizing someone and avoiding the inconvenient truths about these people, get out there and do something yourself. There's no reason to invest all of your psychological energy in this symbol. Invest that energy in yourself, in your efforts.
Yeah, I mean, you can still be inspired by people, but don't put all of your hopes in your freedom and all of your things that are valuable to you. Pin those on another person because they're not going to care about what you do.
Bravo.
We see the result is demoralization whenever that doesn't occur. I mean, even with Ron Paul, God knows I support the man, but the movement, you see it it's so on fire every 4 years. And then once he loses, everyone becomes demoralized and you never hear from them again. It's like, quit investing. I mean, obviously, if you support Ron Paul, you should support as much as you can. But
it's not the man, it's the message.
It's the message, yeah.
Freedom.
Exactly. But
that's what's really important, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's not Ron Paul's not going to fly in. If he got elected in November, which would be cool, but probably not a reality. But if somehow he was able to beat all the vote scams and fraud out there and he gets in, he's not going to fly in, in the beginning of January, middle of January, whatever it is, the 19th or the 21st, whatever it is. He's not going to land on the White House lawn with a cape and poof, all the problems are solved.
Exactly.
He's one man. We have to solve our own problems. Real change comes from within. First, we have to admit there's even a problem to begin with. How many people don't want to admit that Iraq was a complete disaster and we were wrong?
Exactly. Now they're trying to justify it these days, saying we won. I don't know what we won. Oil prices certainly did not go down, and we lost several thousand young men and killed over 1 million Iraqis. But they're trying to chalk it up as a victory, I suppose.
Well, nobody wants to pull out without being able to say we won. because it's this pride thing. It's if they can't say we won, they've even said if we can't say we won, all those guys died for nothing. Yeah, welcome to reality. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what about the millions of Iraqis that are dead? I mean, where's the victory in that? All right, folks, I think on the other side, let's get into a little bit of the bigger picture. What do you think is in store? What do you think is behind the motivations of the people that are in the ruling class? Folks, you're listening to the Free Mind Report on the Logos Radio Network. This is Open Mic Night, open conversation. You can call 512-646-1984, 512-646-1984. Any topic or comment is welcome. We are speaking with Popeye from federaljack.com. And Down the Rabbit Hole. Where can folks check out your radio show?
OrionTalkRadio.com.
When is your show?
Wednesday nights, Friday nights, 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard.
There you go, folks. Excellent show. I enjoy listening to it myself. And we're going to be back right after this with another at least half hour with Popeye. Welcome back to Free Mind Report. We are speaking with Popeye from federaljack.com and Down the Rabbit Hole. You can call 512-646-1984. That's 512-646-1984. Before the break, we said we were going to get into a little bit of the bigger picture here, and I think that it's impossible to do that with looking at the current the architects of the current system, which is the Fabian Society, the Fabian Socialist. When you look into their history and what their plans were for society and getting themselves into positions of power to exert their influence and their worldview, I think that it matches perfectly with what we are experiencing today. I mean, when you look at their stained glass window at their headquarters in England, they're shaping the world. It's on an anvil, and it's a wolf in sheep's clothing. As their
totem.
Their seal.
Their totem.
Their seal, yes. And so, we've got folks like Aldous Huxley. His brother was a member of the Fabian Society, and so everything that he's describing in his books was actually what they were talking about. And we see a combination today of George Orwell's 1984 and Huxley's Brave New World. I mean, the pharmacological control of society, using pharmaceutical drugs to control the anti-authoritarian personality is in full effect. I mean, they're even calling some of this stuff soma. I mean, they're not even trying to hide it. I mean, what do you think of this, Popeye?
Actually, I brought that very comment up to my wife because we were discussing the soma problem that she's from Puerto Rico originally, and where she comes from back home, there's a big problem with prescription drugs. And apparently one of the big things, I don't know if it still is now to this day, but when she was growing up there, it was soma. And she told me this, and I didn't think anything of it, when I met her years ago. And I read A Brave New World. And I was like, what? And I went back and I said to my wife, what was the name of that drug that you were on? And she told me. And then I started to notice that I started to do a little research, and I was like, oh my God, they really talk about it right in your face. But see, I had to come to that. I had to see it for myself. I'm sure if somebody came to me and tried to force it in front of my face, I probably would have argued it for some reason. You know how if you get something thrust upon you, sometimes you get defensive. So I had to see it for myself. I was led to it by other researchers' work and stuff, which, it's like leading the horse to the water, but you got to let the horse drink. And once I saw it and I was able to make like that the correlation between the two things, and I realized there was a connection, boom. This is what I like to call putting the puzzle pieces together, where you'll be doing research. We talked about this. You guys had one of those experiences when you were talking to Alex Jones on air last week, and you were talking to Jane Graham, and she said something that you guys had never heard before. I think she described Strauss-Meyer's car, right?
Yes.
Yeah, she described his car, and for some reason, I guess that chalked up to my own qualities as an investigator. I had never actually inquired about the make of the car that the crew in the basement of the Murray building were with, and it turned out to match exactly the description of a vehicle that Strauss-Meyer had been driving, and in fact had been pulled over and towed a couple months earlier. So you just discover these things as you go along.
And you see how as you were having an interview, you're going over the old research, and it comes out, bam, this new piece of evidence, and it's this puzzle piece that no matter how small, it fits right into a spot, and bam, it fills up that bigger picture, and you understand it a little bit better as a whole. It's amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, just planting seeds with people. I mean, obviously, you're not going to be able to talk most people into converting wholeheartedly to your worldview. But if you plant a couple seeds with people who are willing to pursue the implications of these things, you can see it sprout later on. I've seen this many times. It's very productive. I think we have a caller, Jake from Texas. That's probably Austin. Jake, do you have a question, comment, or topic you wish to bring up?
Yeah, I've been listening to you for a while now, and you know, talking to other people and getting them to wake up. One of the things that I've been doing is, well, back when Bush was president, you know, I would ask people if they could name any of Bush's four brothers. And it's amazing, you know, the most educated, seemingly well-founded people have no idea, and they don't. It doesn't seem to bother them. You know, that it's so secretive that we don't even know the family of the president of our nation. And today, I ask people, do you know Obama's mother? Nobody seems to know that today.
Yeah. In fact, I would argue that our current president is probably the most opaque president we've ever had. We don't know a whole lot about that man or his early life. There's very few pictures from his early life, very few firsthand accounts of dealing with him. And it is amazing.
And what about the bloodlines? I mean, you got, Cheney's wife saying, oh, isn't that funny that Obama and Cheney are actually cousins? Oh, he's actually cousins with Bush, too. I mean, how all of these presidents can all trace, except for, I think, two, trace their bloodlines back to royalty.
That's coincidence, James.
Just coincidence, yes.
When you have, go ahead, Jake.
It just takes very little time to research and find out. You know, I mean, I got on the internet just to kind of support what I already knew and add to that last week, and you know, you can very quickly find out that Stanley Ann Dunham is our president's mother, and you can find out all about his grandparents and all the rest of that, and people who vote for them and think they're so wonderful, and they don't even know the parents and brothers of the people they're voting for. Just amazing.
Oh yeah,
and what's even more amazing is it doesn't seem to bother anybody.
You make a really good point, and you know what? How many people don't even know that he's got four brothers? How many people think he's like Jeb Bush is his brother and that's it? People don't even, when they hear that Marvin Bush, his brother, was in charge of the security at the World Trade Center, people say, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist, you're a nut, that he's only got Jeb as a brother. Really? I think you should go do a little more research.
Marvin also held the security contracts to the two airports where those hijacked planes left from.
Yeah, Stratosec. Kevin Ryan's done amazing work on that.
Not to mention, you know, who remembers Silverado from the 80s? His brother Neil was involved with that.
Well, the actual judge in that case was Judge Maitch, who was later the judge in the Oklahoma City trial of Tim McVeigh.
And, you know, that kind of stuff keeps popping up over and over, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when you pursue these links, when you pursue these connections and links, you see the coherent whole, and you can see the agenda at work. Thanks for calling in, Jake, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, all it takes is a little bit of homework and just looking into things. And Jake did bring up a good point. Our current president, and I'm saying this is the most opaque president we've ever had. No one knows anything about this man. There are people in college who are like, I never remembered him in college. And I mean, it's just amazing when you look into this man's background and history, how much of it is shrouded in absolute mystery. You can't even be entirely sure of his correct parentage.
Well, he's a CIA creation. Mm-hmm. From what I can gather, at least his background is created by the CIA. So why would they have to manufacture this background and this individual? And you have to look at the Central Intelligence Agency and understand that they are not a government agency. They are a private corporation that the government holds some stocks in and has a little bit of controlling stock of, but they're a private corporation.
And you've got the attorney the other day saying, yes, let's go ahead and take the birth certificate out of evidence. He goes like, yeah, it's fake. I mean, they're admitting that the birth certificate was a fake. But the problem is it's already been established in the public mind because the mass media pushed all this out to the people, said this is a legitimate birth certificate, and that was enough information for them to go ahead and go with it and say, okay, well, that problem is solved. When it actually gets to court, somebody looks at it, and they're saying, well, of course, I mean, this is an obvious forgery. And even the attorney says, yeah, let's go ahead and strike that from the evidence. This is the methodology they use. I mean, we saw it with Kurt Haskell and the underwear bomber. They tell the story over and over and over again. It's solidified in the public mind. Then a month or two later, the FBI comes out and finally admits the truth that, yes, somebody did help him get on the plane. There were other people involved. But at that point, it's too late. The mainstream media doesn't cover it. It's already locked in. And this is what we're up against. This is why we have to become the media. This is why we encourage you on this show to get out there and do something. I mean, look at your day. Look at your day. Slice it up into a pie. How much of your day can you dedicate to fighting this? How much of this day can you dedicate to trying to preserve the freedom that men and women sacrificed everything for? I mean, is that not worth just a little bit of time out of every day?
And the fact is the mainstream media is trying to mold the public opinion towards a certain agenda, but they're likewise rendering themselves obsolete. I mean, newspapers are dead. Print is dead with newspapers. The mainstream media outlets, the only people who are really watching that for their information are people who have not yet, basically plugged into the new information revolution that's happening. They're not aware of how easy it is, or they're scared of all the information out there. The mainstream media is unnecessary. We don't need it anymore. And people say, well, that's the internet. I think actually you had something in your show, Popeye, about how all of a sudden people will say the internet's evil because, you can find information on there. But the fact is, we know that information off the internet can be unreliable. That's good. Now we know that we ourselves have to do our own homework and verify whether this piece of information is true or not. That's how it should be. You should not be taking anything on anyone's word, and you certainly should not be taking the word of an institution whose only goal is self-preservation, taking anything they say on face value. You should question everything you hear. I tell everyone, don't believe anything I say. Look it up yourself, verify whether it's true or not.
Let's digress just a little bit here and go back to Aldous Huxley. At the California Medical School in 1961, he is quoted saying, "There will be, in the next generation or so, a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude and producing dictatorship without tears. So to speak, producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies so that people will, in fact, have their liberties taken away from them, but will rather enjoy it, because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods." And this seems to be the final revolution. This is what we're talking about. I mean, this is what we're up against. I mean, anytime any female I know that goes to the doctor, the first thing that they try to do is put them on drugs. Oh, you're a little this, you're a little that. Oh, you need to take all these, pharmacological drugs, psychotropic drugs. Sorry, that to affect them for, just normal mood changes and stuff. That's perfectly natural, and convinces them to put themselves on these drugs that totally stifle their consciousness, stifle their ability to discern reality. And this is what we're facing. This is what we're trying to expose, folks.
Someone I'm close to actually, about a year ago, got off of those pharmacological drugs, the psychotropics and stuff. And this person had been on them for a long time, since they were younger, because I guess when they were just too much to handle, they had. Which, at times, I guess maybe the person was out of control, but all teenagers are. And they know what to do.
Except normal teenage tendencies.
Of course, dude. Hormones raging.
We're going to have to pick this up on the other side. We'll be right back, folks. Welcome back to the Fremont Report on the Logos Radio Network. You can check out our website, fremontreport.com. Check out the new guest information and all of the podcasts. We are taking all calls tonight, kind of open topic night. 512-646-1984. That's 512-646-1984. We are speaking with Popeye from federaljack.com and Down the Rabbit Hole, a biweekly radio show that he's doing. And before the break, we were talking a little bit about the psychotropic drugs that they have everybody on, and how Huxley, it was a brother of a member of the Fabian Society, basically wrote about what we're currently experiencing. And when you read their documents, this is what they had planned for society. I think that, we saw other groups rise since then. I think Bilderberg has obviously become a very powerful force after World War II, after the National Socialists, had failed the incrementalism of the Fabians. Fabian was a Roman general who won his battles through attrition. They're in for the long race, not the short sprint. And we see that through, even what Bilderberg's doing today. What Obama, and Hillary were just neck and neck during the election. And surprisingly, everybody disappears during the Bilderberg meeting there in D.C. Nobody knows where Obama or Hillary is. And after that meeting, they decide who is actually going to be the candidate for the Democratic Party. Strange things like this occur, with these Bilderberg meetings. And Jim Tucker, I think, has been an excellent source with his people that are on the inside there that supply information. And so far, all of his predictions have been pretty much spot on.
But I think the pharmacological thing is very important, because their ultimate goal is to basically have every child on some type of drug. And when you have a child on these drugs that affect their brain chemistry throughout development, by the time they become an adult, they're not going to be the person they could have been. They're not going to fulfill their human destiny, because they have been altered, chemically altered, since they entered public education, since they entered the public indoctrination system, and they are not the person they could have been. They are chemically castrated in such a way that they can't stand up to authority. That is the ultimate goal, to have us on these drugs from the time of development, form us into the citizens or the serfs or the slaves, however you want to call it, that they want us to be. And they have a compliant population who is chemically altered, chemically dependent, and totally dependent on the elite for their information, for their sustenance. And you have a complete and willing labor pool. The ultimate dream of the oligarchs since time immemorial was to ultimately control their population. And they are seeing this. They see this doable now with technology, with non-lethal technology, with pharmacological technology, with public propaganda, with trying to control all of our information matrix. But we are fighting back through the information revolution, through alternative media, through the internet. And what do you think, Popeye? Do you think they're really going to try to shut off the internet?
They might. Back in the day, I would have said to you, no, I think it's just they're posturing. But I really do think that the possibility of them faking a hack attack is real. I mean, I've interviewed hackers about this. I actually have a regular hacker on my show, or a hacker as a regular on my show, I should say. And when he comes on, I'll come on for 2 hours, and he breaks down, what's going on. Anytime there's something with Anonymous and the Feds involved, I like to have him on so he can give me the real information from behind the scenes, as opposed to what the lamestream media, I like to call them, is actually putting out there. And he did say that, there is the possibility that they would do this. And when I say they, obviously it's not the entire government. It's just a rogue faction within the government that now actually likes to use more private contractors than even their own government agencies, because private contractors, it's harder to find a paper trail. How many people know how many private contractors are in Iraq right now? I had this argument earlier this afternoon with someone, and I won't mention who it was, but they had no idea, basically, that there were people still in Iraq. They thought there was nothing. We were all gone. It was all hunky-dory. We had brought them democracy, and they had McDonald's and freedom and toilet paper and everything else. And I was like, what planet do you live on? You know what I mean? Like,
they had all that before we bombed them into oblivion.
Very true.
And
why did we blow up powdered milk factories?
Mm-hmm. And the fact is, you're right, they are privatizing these, and they're especially privatizing the operations. 9/11 was likely a public-private partnership. You see the involvement of these private intelligence entities, which they're all former spooks, they were trained by the U.S. government, then they decided to go private and make a lot more money and also escape the scrutiny that can come with public service, meaning paper trails, accountability, and so forth. When you're a private corporation, you can keep all of that secret.
You know how I talk about puzzle pieces? I just put something together. I have to interrupt you before I forget, Holland.
No, do it.
When you guys mentioned when you were at the memorial, there was a big Homeland Security presence, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Huge.
Okay. Did you know that the Republicans are apparently pushing to give DHS control of certain national parks throughout the United States? And at those national parks, they would be able to restrict any law they wanted to at any given time?
This is probably a precursor to it, then, to have them out there and get people conditioned to it.
They're making their footprint. It was unnecessary for Homeland Security to be at the memorial for obvious security or any kind of utilitarian reasons. It's totally unnecessary. The only reason they were there was a dog and pony show. Yes, I do agree. I mean, just for example, I believe last year there was a bomb threat. In downtown Oklahoma City, me and James and Chris went down there with our cameras to figure out what was going on. And it was a tremendous circus going on. There were 3 different departments, bomb squads there. The Red Cross was in the parking lot handing out cookies and punch, literally, handing out snacks. They had a snack bar. And it was just a backpack that someone left outside a hotel. They forgot their luggage. That was it. But it was this huge dog and pony show. It was on the news. Ooh, bomb threat. Ooh, Homeland Security's here. Ooh, we have all these new anti-terrorism tools we can play with. Obviously, the departments on the ground are just justifying their budget. That's why they showed up. You don't need more than one bomb squad to investigate a backpack. But it's just all about a dog and pony show, putting the footprint in, saying that this is necessary for your safety. And, that's all it is. But it has nothing to do with the real security at all.
There was another incident, I think about a week or so before that. I work in one of the high-rises downtown Oklahoma City, and one of my coworkers was looking out the window and saw some guy messing with some of the water main, or the little water covers there, the little small ones that maybe 6-8 inches around, and he thought it was weird. The guy was in his regular car, his plain clothes or whatever, and he decided to call it in. Whatever, it's fine. But what I found interesting was how it unfolded. I mean, they had every news station reported a different thing. A man was seen crawling into a manhole. A man was seen throwing a suspicious package into a manhole, like this giant manhole cover. And we had 4 square blocks around our building closed off. We had again multiple bomb squads. About every police officer, I think, that was on duty at the time was down there. We had 2 detectives come up and question him about what he actually saw, and it was just a circus. It was justification for this money. And you have the Memorial Institute for the Prevention of Terrorism here in Oklahoma City. They're housed in the same building as the Memorial Museum. And every couple of months, the director, David Sid, comes out with an article in like Homeland Security magazine or this or that, stating that there's an imminent threat. There's an imminent problem with domestic terrorism. And it's like, okay, well, what is the threat, David said? Call it out. Who is it? No, it's fear-mongering. It's justification for these budgets. This is how they make their living, and it's at our expense, the expense of our freedom and our livelihood.
Dude, roger that. I couldn't have said it better myself. I want to give you a big golden soapbox to stand on and let you rant even further, because you're speaking the gospel. 110%. And I mean, if people can't see this, if people can't see past the fear, we don't stand a chance. And that's why my biggest thing is I always try to remind people that all this, yes, there is the capability that they have of pulling something off. There is always that threat. But
I mean, there is an anti-terrorism effort out there, but it's aimed at independents, people who aren't controlled.
Exactly. But why? Because they're evolving in their thought pattern, in their knowledge, in their level of knowledge, and they fear that evolution. It's as simple as that.
And they're trying to reinforce their programming with fear, not with love, with fear. And I say to anyone, I distrust anyone who comes to you with a message based out of fear instead of love, because it's based out of fear. Not a whole lot of good things come out of fear.
Fear is the mind killer. Folks, you're listening to the Free Mind Report on the Logos Radio Network. We're speaking with Popeye tonight. Stick with us. We're going to be back right after this break.
Welcome back to the Free Mind Report. If you want to call in and speak with our guest, Popeye from Federal Jack and Down the Rabbit Hole, the number is 512-646-1984. I repeat, 512-646-1984. We're covering a variety of topics. We're really going kind of off the wall here on Free Mind Report today because we have such a great guest, and he can offer a lot of wise words to those of you who are listening. So I advise you to call in. But we're discussing about the deeper agenda at work here. We're talking about the end game, I guess you could say, is what they're really striving for is a chemically altered population that is totally dependent upon the elite for everything, totally compliant. And that is the ultimate dream of the oligarchs since, like I said, since the beginning of time, to ultimately control their populations. And this is the battle. This is the time that they can do it. The technology is there. The drugs are there. The non-lethal technology is there. They can actually pull it off, and they're going for it. This is why we have to, in this generation, within the next 5 years, I dare say, really stand up and put a stop to it, because in a couple years, it's going to be too late. The next generation is really, they're more altered and they're more controlled than we are. And that is what they're striving for. They're waiting for their totally controlled generation to achieve managerial status, to become old enough to start managing things. And you know what? When that happens, we're kind of screwed because it's too late. We need to fight it now. The more we put it off, the harder it's going to be. And they are behind schedule. Don't think that they're all powerful and that they can do anything. That is a trap. That is based in fear, like we were saying before. They are not all powerful. They are scrambling for solutions, scrambling to keep up with what we are presenting. I think, honestly, that the reason they haven't pulled off another false flag attack on the scale of 9/11 is because it would blow up in their face. These operations are incredibly sloppy. And when people say, oh, the government, they could never pull off something like that. Well, they don't. It's incredibly sloppy, but the mainstream media can be relied upon to not pursue these loose ends. But you know what? The alternative media is not going to let them get away with that. And the alternative media is becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. I mean, the mainstream media is not gaining ground. They're not. They're losing ground. So this is the time, people. Stand up, fight for your rights, fight for your freedom, because in a couple of years, it's going to be a lot harder, and I dare say it's going to be too late.
If we don't do anything, I agree. The reason we're not there yet is because people stood up and tried to wake people, and they were the precursors to the people that are waking people up now. And hopefully the people that are waking up people now will inspire others who will then go out and be their own individual whoever and go wake people up. And according to their plan, they wanted this back in like 2000.
They're behind.
They're already angry about this. They're really mad that there's this big monkey wrench in their works. First of all, these people are a joke, Holland. David Rockefeller, he's someone I'm supposed to be scared of, that dude, or his sons, or the rest of their ilk, or Bush, or Clinton, or any of them. I don't fear any of them, and none of you who are listening should fear them either, because it's the other way around. They fear you, because the stark reality of the matter is this, that all of you out there listening right now, and James and Holland and their whole crew and myself and everybody I know and I work with, all of us together are more powerful than they are. Even as individuals, we are more powerful than they are, and they could ever dream of being. And they are jealous and they are fearful of that because they realize that humanity is evolving. And this isn't new age, blah, blah, blah. This is the reality of things. Humanity is evolving. We don't look at things the same way we did 20 years ago. There is more people waking up and looking into this, this large conspiracy, I guess you could call it, but other things as well. People are understanding things more. There are more people getting in touch with their humanity than ever before, okay? And they fear this because when that happens, Holland, they're irrelevant instantly. Can you imagine if all of a sudden everybody realized we don't need this huge machine to keep us safe, that we could do it ourselves more efficiently, and we could we could definitely do a better job.
They're steeped in ego. The enemy is ego, and they cannot understand the awakening that is going on right now. And they are fearful of it. But I remember when I first started getting involved, I was extremely fearful. And this is something I equate to a story that one of our associates, Kay Beach, She does Axiom for Liberty on this network Fridays 6 to 8 p.m. with Howard Houchin. But she talks about the panopticon, and it was a prison system that was designed a century ago, where all of the cells faced inwards, and there was a large tower in the center. And I think they didn't have the two-way mirror at that time. They used louvers, and so every inmate thought they were being watched at all times. We see this today with the cameras that are on the street corners. Those cameras could be the size of a little tiny pinhead, and they would be able to get the information that they supposedly say they're after. No, this was so you know you're being watched. This is so you police yourself. And when you first wake up, you first start getting involved, or maybe even longer term. I know people have been involved in it for a long time that are fearful. They won't use things like Gmail. Well, every piece of email that you send, no matter what system you use, is going through a data mining system called a NARA system. The NSA has these at hubs all over the world, well, all over the country, and every piece of email that goes through there is data mined. I don't fear them. I will walk in the light and do what I need to do. I will not allow them to make me hinder myself. I take their tools and use them against them. Oh, we can't do Facebook. No, use Facebook and use it as a news aggregate to get information out and spread this viral information.
Don't hide any of your feelings or your thoughts or your research or your findings, because the more you broadcast it, that's the more they have to keep up with. That's the more they have to track. And that impedes their system, that impedes their intelligence collection. When everyone out there is passing this information along, they can't keep up with that. I mean, there's just no way. I mean, just on a mundane level, they're talking about like all the drone footage they have from the wars overseas, and they're talking about it would take, 20 years or something like that to view all that footage. They've collected all of this data, but it's essentially useless because there's so much of it. Flood the system. They can't keep up.
I've stepped outside of my cognitive dissonance. I have eliminated the compartmentalization in my mind, and I am James Lane. I am out here. I am fighting the enemy, and I mean, out of all the information that we've got out, there has never been an angry email, an angry phone call, or anything, because, like Colin's saying, they can't keep up with all of it. And if everybody else will step out there and just do a little something every day, that's going to be the what turns the tide. We'll hit a critical mass. That is the goal, is a critical mass where they can't keep plugging all the holes in the dam anymore. It's going to be a flood of information that's going to come out. And at that point, there's no turning back.
And I think that's the ultimate secret. You really want to know the ultimate secret of the meta conspiracy? The ultimate secret of all is that I think that we each individually have the power to put a stop to this all right now, today. We actually do. If everyone refused to obey right now, today, if the brutalizing class put down their guns, stopped obeying the orders of the elite, it would all stop today. We actually all have the power to put a stop to this, every bit of it, today. The only question is why we're not doing it.
Yeah, war would end tomorrow if the soldiers, the airmen, the sailors, the Marines, everybody turned around and said, "No, we're not doing it. Go out there and fight. You want to go fight? Here's a gun. You go do it." Well, I'm a politician. Well, I'm not dying for you. How about that?
Exactly. And see who we're making these sacrifices for. We're not sacrificing, for our country. We're not sacrificing for apple pie and our family and our way of life. We're sacrificing for the higher agendas of those who profit from these wars. I mean, that is the ultimate truth. And it's hard to tell people that, their loved one or someone that they know who's overseas fighting is not fighting for America. I'm sorry that is so, but it's the truth. And turning away from it and acting like it's not, that it's not so, is not going to change the harsh reality that we're all being used against our own best interests. I mean, 80% of American population of the world agree on 80% of the issues. We do. Let's work on that 80%. We'll save the 20% of the divisive stuff for later. We'll debate on that after we achieve the 80% of the things that we all agree that we need. But as long as they keep on dividing us against ourselves with these petty issues, these petty left-right divisions, I mean, that's the plan.
Well, perhaps we would be better suited to take on those tougher issues if we got through the other stuff and we were maybe a little bit higher up. I don't know how to put it, but more, I don't want to say more evolved, but you know what I mean. Maybe if we handled other things and we looked at things in a different light and via knowledge, we were on a different level, maybe those discussions wouldn't be so harsh anymore, because there wouldn't be that divide and conquer tactic that's constantly being thrown in your face, or that fear. You must fear this person because they're brown. You must fear this person because they're yellow or white or whatever, or have polka dots or wear bows in their hair or listen to rap music or watch James Lane and Holland's films and believe that the government might actually do something bad or whatever. They have to segregate everybody because they can't take us on all at once. So they marginalize groups. It's exactly how the Nazis did it. And many other organizations throughout history have done the same thing. Marginalize, and then I'm not one of them, so I don't have to get involved. And they turn their head because it's uncomfortable. Again, that goes to what I said earlier about people. We need the biggest step people need to make in their lives, the first step, and this is just my advice, but this seems to work, okay, is we have to admit that there are problems, and there is a problem, that mistakes have been made, i.e. Iraq as an example. And if you can admit that and you can say, okay, there is a problem, okay, it was wrong, let's face it, let's just deal with it, rather than hold that in, that negative emotion, because that's not healthy. Let it out. Deal with it, face it, and move on. And we'll be that much stronger as individuals and as a country.
Absolutely. And that is key, is to be able to admit that you have been fooled, that you have been wrong, and forego the ego. Have the fortitude to be able to work through that. Folks, you can call 512-646-1984. That's 512-646-1984 to join the conversation tonight. We're going to be back with Popeye for one more segment right after this break. Welcome back to the final segment tonight of the Free Mind Report. You can check out the website freemindreport.com for the most current guest information in all of our podcasts. We're speaking with Popeye tonight from federaljack.com and Down the Rabbit Hole. Again, why don't you let the listeners know where they can find your show and what days it's on?
I'm on Wednesday nights and Friday nights, Eastern Standard Time, from 10 p.m. to midnight, and Sundays from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can listen to my show over at the Orion Talk Radio Network. It's oriontalkradio.com, or you can go to federaljack.com, and I have a player on the right-hand side there.
Well, highly recommend it, folks. Federal Jack has been turning out solid information for years now. They've always been a good go-to source for me whenever I want to see what's going on with whatever's the most current. You guys really have your finger on the pulse of what's going on, and it's an excellent source for information.
So, Popeye, we were talking a little bit about activism off the air. What do you think is the best way to reach out to people to wake them up to the paradigm we're inhabiting?
I think you have to find everybody's individual key, and I know that sounds rather hard and maybe a large, daunting task, but if everybody remembers that there are more of us than there are of the bad guys, if everybody got up, if 30% of the population got up, everybody would be awake, we'd have more than enough people to take care of business, and then we could fix things. But as for changing things or waking people up, rather, I would say individual basis. There is no one-size-fits-all policy. I would say that some people, the economy, some people 9/11. Like I told you guys off air, my dad was always been on the fence about 9/11 being an inside job. He knows the bankers, the New World Order, but it was still a lot for him to handle. And as soon as he saw your movie the other day, because he had always bought the official story of Oklahoma City. He thought it was just McVeigh drove a truck bomb up, boom, end of story. I'm out the government, boom. That's what he thought. Literally, that simple, 2-3 line story, and that was it. And he saw your movie, and my dad's, an older Vietnam vet. He's getting up there in his age, and he looked at me, and I haven't seen fire in his eyes like that in probably 25 or 30 years. You guys lit a fire inside of him. He said to me, literally, I was off track a little while, but I'm back on track. Let's go. Let's get this done. Wow. He's just fired up. And he said to me, I said, what was the biggest thing in the film? And he just said, well, they show you I've never seen any of this evidence. How come these survivors, how come they're not on the media? The media, why didn't the media do this? And he said, and that was it. That was like, because he already doesn't, I broke his Fox News programming. I exposed Glenn Beck to him. I showed him what Glenn Beck thought about the 9/11 victims' families, and he was just like, well, he's done. And I've been able to slowly with him, piece by piece, you have to do it. I think if you overwhelm somebody with too much, they just turn you off. You know what I mean? Like if you guys didn't know and I came to you and I was like, oh my God, James, Holland, Oklahoma City, 9/11, New World Order, Illuminati, oh my God, you'd be like, whoa, dude. Sit, take a load off, take 5 minutes, breathe. You need a cigarette or something, like calm down. You know what I mean? And I think if you go at somebody like that, they just instantly turn you off and say, over emotional, whatever,
exactly.
Nuts. And a lot of times they're going to judge you if it's someone that you're personal, like your family member. Mm-hmm. They're going to judge you based off an emotional level. So if you're frustrated about waking up a family member and you just can't do it, like you had an awesome experience with your dad, James, that's cool. But if someone can't do it, I always recommend if you have a friend who they know that is awake, maybe have your friend do it or introduce somebody to them, because they won't look at it with that emotional lens because it's not their son or their daughter or whoever, whatever the relationship is. It's this outside individual that they have some separate sort of respect for, and they go, wow. So that's just a thing I wanted to throw in there too before I forgot.
Well, and don't lose track of where you were before you woke up. Put yourself back in that spot. That's the way that I deal with all the one-on-one conversations. I listen. I'm not just talking at somebody. I try to listen to what they're saying to me, and I try to relate with them in the terms that they are providing me. That has been very effective. But what's interesting is about what you were saying earlier about your father and his comments about the documentary. All of the people that we've interviewed, well, almost all of them, have been interviewed by mainstream media outlets, History Channel, Discovery Channel, etc., and they have all told the same story they told us. We know the guy that was actually working on the set during those shoots. He was actually our director of photography on our film, and he said he's heard this same story from them 3 or 4 times, but it all hit the cutting room floor. That anything that contradicted the official story hit the cutting room floor. And this documentary, A Noble Lie, you can find it on noblelie.com, is the first time that these people have been able to tell their whole story without it being cut.
It looks like we have a caller, Jeff from Oklahoma. Jeff, do you have something you'd like to bring up?
Hey, Holland. Just wanted to thank you for getting the radio station back up. I've been listening since Christmas. And
oh, wow. Yeah, thank you.
I wish it could get a little stronger like it used to be, but it's nice to hear you coming in loud and clear over the radio. I haven't had a chance to see the movie yet, but if it's as good as the Final Report book, I sure would like to get several copies of that if you give me a phone call.
Well, yeah, as actually a lot of the work was based upon the final report of the Oklahoma Buying Investigation Committee, and you can go to noblelie.com. And if there's other arrangements you want to make to purchase the movie, go to contact@freemindfilms.com. And I believe a phone number is posted on the website also.
In addition, the local survivalist store here in the city, Red Dawn, I believe this Friday will be carrying copies of it in their store. We haven't had an actual location here in Oklahoma City for people to go purchase them, and that will be available, I believe, as of this Friday.
That's in Del City, Red Dawn in Del City. They'll be carrying the movie as of this Friday, so you can go pick up all the copies if you want, if you don't want to leave an online trace. Thanks, Jeff, and spread the word about Resistance Radio.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent. That's cool. What we were talking about before is bringing up the separate source of information, and that when you look into civil informationeering, which is the way of spreading a word without separating yourself from the public. When you have a protest and you confine yourself to a designated space, you're separating yourself from the public, and you're making a statement, but you're not reaching out to people really at all. The formal protest is kind of an outmoded, form of protest. I mean, having like an event. The best way to spread the word is civil informationeering, going mouth to mouth, word to word. And when people hear a qualified piece of information from 2 independent sources. Now they know that it's all right to think this way. People need validation for thinking a certain way. This is psychological. I've looked into this. I'm not an expert, but I looked into it. And when they hear a certain piece of information that's contrary to the mainstream paradigm, when they hear it from 2 independent sources, 2 people doing street actions, now they know, you know what, maybe it's all right to think this way. It's not just one dude thinking this. Now there's more people out there, and it's more psychologically palatable. Looks like we have another caller, our friend Chris Emery, narrator on the show. Hey, Chris.
Hey, guys, got an update for you. Just on my way back to the studio from Red Dawn. I just dropped 30 DVDs off. They are hot and ready to sell. So we've got the banner set up there, and we're good to go.
All right, Chris. Good job. Jeff, if you're still listening, Red Dawn is now carrying a noble lie.
We've had a lot of people asking where they can get them here in the city, so that was great. Thank you, Chris. Yeah, that was the thing is, a lot of people don't want to leave that online trail, like you said. Yeah. And so down in Austin, Texas, they can go to Brave New Books, pick them up there, and Oklahoma City at Red Dawn. And Red Dawn's a great place for any type of preparedness stuff that you're doing. They've got workshops.
Oh yeah, they're having a workshop at the end of this month. Actually, go to reddawnok.com, I believe is the website. And you can check it out. Just Google Red Dawn, Del City, Oklahoma. You'll find their website. They actually are having a survival workshop at the end of this month. I highly advise you check this out. And that's also a great way to network with your local preparedness community, because there's a very large and viable preparedness community here in Oklahoma that is, and it's a community. It's if the things really, hit the bucket and they get really bad, you're going to need a network of people to rely upon. No man's an island. So the time to form that network is now.
Well, Popeye, we got about 2 minutes left here. What parting words do you have for the audience?
I'm going to leave them with something I like to read out loud on air all the time. It's called the Litany Against Fear. I actually have it tattooed on me. And you actually said one of the lines from it before, and it's something that I find is helpful when people are scared or frightened. And in this day and age, there is that fear vibe all the time. So to help you beat that back, I'm going to give this to you, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope this helps. It's called the Litany Against Fear. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. I will permit it to pass over me and through me. And when it has gone past, I will turn the inner eye to see its path. Where the fear has gone, there will be nothing. Only I will remain.
It's truth. That's truth right there.
And that is something to ponder. I have pondered those lines on many occasions when I felt fear. Fear can be a gift. It tells you when you need to be on your toes. It tells you when you need to be alert, but it should not control your behavior. And you should not be limited by fear. It's a tool that you use, that nature, that God, whatever your viewpoint, has given you to assess the dangers at hand, but to overcome them. So yes, those are very wise words.
One more time, let's give out the websites, Popeye.
OrionTalkRadio.com, FederalJack.com. My show is called Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm on Wednesday nights, Friday nights, 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Standard Time, and Sundays, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Gentlemen, it's been an honor and a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us, Popeye. Pleasure as always, sir.
It's been a great show.
All right, folks, we're going to be back next Monday from 6 to 8 p.m. right on this network. Be sure and check it out. And as always, go to freemindreport.com for the latest guest information and all of the podcasts. If you're not able to listen live, podcasts are posted up there very quickly. Our producer's awesome. She takes care of that for us. And also on iTunes, you can subscribe there, and that way you can stay in touch with us. And check us out on Facebook. Post your comments or questions on there. We'll be sure and answer them on air. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you for joining us.